What's good, y'all? Wave Magnetic here with another tutorial. And today what I'm going to talk to you about is the best vocal chain for mixing your vocals. It took me a while to kind of develop this approach to mixing. It's a combination of a few different things, but I've kind of found a way that works for me pretty well. And I know a lot of people go their own way of doing it, but I kind of have my approach to doing it, and been getting pretty good results. So let's look into this track that I just made and see how I mix these vocals. All right, so when I'm going through the vocals, the first thing I usually do is I want to get rid of the stuff that I don't really like, okay? Because every vocal has like resonances, and they have different things in the vocal that is things that if you compress it, it's just going to bring it out, and they're going to start sounding very harsh, you know, or it could just be like really muddy too. Okay. So first thing I do is I usually grab a dynamic EQ, and the only dynamic EQ that I actually have is Ozone's dynamic EQ. And it doesn't matter which one you use, just use one. So what I did with this particular vocal is I found some resonances that I didn't like. First one that I found was at 3.2K, 3.25K. So a lot of times at 3K, that can be a really harsh frequency for a lot of vocalists, especially for women. Guys, not always, but sometimes, a lot of times women, you know, they have higher pitched voices. And so notching out some 3.2K, and that can really make it so that when they dig in, it can bite you like right in the ear. It can be harsh. And then when it gets really loud, it really goes to town on you. So I dipped that out right here. And I also found another muddy frequency at around 600 kilohertz or 600 hertz that it was muddying it up. Okay. So I'm gonna let you listen to the vocal before and after, and you can see how this particular plugin is working. All right. So check it out. Before sounds like this.
It's time to get away from everything familiar. Let's take a flight today to a...
All right, so you hear that? That sounds pretty good, right? Now I'm gonna hit these notches. Check it out.
It's time to get away from everything familiar. Let's take a flight today to a place where we can play.
Now, if you see how it's interacting with the vocal. At certain times, the 3K one is like really dipping down, and sometimes it's not doing anything. That's why I like doing it with a dynamic EQ versus having like a fab filter or any like stagnant EQ. If you do it with a stagnant EQ, it'll dip down, and it'll just stay that way. And sometimes you want those frequencies to come in and out because it's not always boomy or always harsh. You just want it to do its thing when it's needed. You know what I'm saying? So I would definitely say first thing is when you're mixing your vocals, definitely have a dynamic EQ on your vocals, okay? Now, mind you, this is after all the tuning and whatnot. You know, different genres require different amounts of tuning and different ways it's supposed to sound. So depending on your genre, you use tuning or not. You know, on this particular one, I use a fair amount of tuning because, you know, we're going for a certain sound, okay? And then after I do that, I get those harsh frequencies out right there. Then I run it through a Deesser, okay? Now the Deesser is meant to catch all of the sibilances, all your S's, all your T's, some of the ch's and cuz and all that kind of stuff. So check it out. Watch this Deesser, and it doesn't even really matter what Deesser you use. The Waves one I got right here works just fine. There's other ones that work just fine too. But most of the time, having it set around 7K does the trick, okay? And you might have to do it in serial. You might have to do it at different steps, just because, like, say you want your vocal to be brighter, and when you turn up the high end, it winds up being you hear more of the S's, even though you already de-essed it. Put another de-esser on there, crank it up. All right, so check it out. Here we go.
It's time to get away from everything familiar. Let's take a flight today.
So you see, it only works on the T's and the S's, really like tames those, okay? So I got my de-esser. So first I use my dynamic EQ, then I go to my de-esser. Now I have my favorite plugin right here. This is the Focusrite console emulation thing from Brainworks, from Plugin Alliance. This right here is my go-to for pretty much everything. If I need something EQ'd, if I want something to really sound good, like, this is my go-to EQ, and especially for drums, this is my go-to compressor too. Okay, but before I put the Focusrite on, I get my Puigchild. Sorry. So my Puigchild is my main compressor. Okay, this compressor is like it gives you the sound. You know, it's like tubes or whatnot. This is a Fairchild. All right. So I'm looking to get between 5 and 10 dB of compression with this. Check this out.
It's time to get away from everything familiar. Let's take a flight today.
So you see, like at the highest points when it's compressing, it's getting around minus 10 dB, right? So now that I got this compressor set, you know, I have it set to the fastest setting on here, fastest attack, fastest release. This is just kind of how this particular compressor works, okay? Now I got that, like that gluey sound. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my Focusrite on, but I'm gonna put my Focusrite before my Puigchild. So I get the level that I want to get with the Puigchild, okay? And now before I put my EQ before that, and I EQ into the compression that I already set up. All right, this right here is going to make it so that, again, this compressor is going to kind of tame the vocals, where first it's giving me my level, it's giving me some sound, some warmth, because it's got the tube sound and whatnot in there. And then now I'm going to EQ into this, and this compressor is going to kind of act like another de-esser, and it's going to get rid of it's going to tame a lot of the frequencies that could get out of control. That's why you want to EQ into your compressor. All right, so I'm doing many levels of taming here, okay? So check this out. I got this set to 10K. Right, this is my high shelf set to 10K. I boosted that 7 dB. Then I have another one set at 4.9 kilohertz. This right here is this is the presence frequency, okay, for vocals and various other instruments. Around 5K, 4K, somewhere around there. Get that presence to come out, right? And then to get that body sound, I'm boosting 160 hertz. Now 160 hertz on this particular thing, a particular EQ, it's kind of got a wide Q on it. So this is a shelf down at 160, and it's wide. So you're getting stuff up to like 200, 300 in there. So even though I'm boosting at 160, it's getting a lot more stuff that's above it. Even though it's a higher pitched vocal, it's still getting a lot of the information up there, and it does it in a really cool way. Now, since it does boost all the way up there, I'm taking out a little 400 just because it got a little boomy. So check it out.
It's time to get away from everything familiar.
Super dope, right? Now I'm going to turn the EQ off, and I'm going to turn it back on.
It's time to get away from everything familiar. Let's take a flight today.
Super dope, right? Okay, now I got I got my air with my 10K. I got my presence with my 5K, right? I got my body with my 160, and I took out a little bit of mud at 400, right? And this right here, this is another compressor that I have going on here that just kind of helps out with a little bit more so that the Puigchild doesn't have to do all the heavy lifting. Okay, we get a little bit of room, get a little bit of help from this from the Focusrite. All right. So now what I'm doing, I did that pretty much that exact same chain on all these vocals. So these are stacks here. These three right here are stacks, and we got different harmonies and whatnot, right? So I got pretty much the same exact chain on all of them. Now I have it running through a bus, okay? Now with this bus, I have all of them going through this bus, and I'm going to affect all the vocals, okay? So this is the cool thing about this. First thing is I put my L2 on. Now the L2 is literally just to tame the vocals, because when you start layering vocals, certain notes will get really loud. And it's not because the vocal isn't sitting right, not because it's not tamed, or, you know, not because of anything you did wrong. It's just that when you layer a vocal on top of another vocal, it gets louder. And you can't control how it's going to get louder. So now we got to put another stage compression. But my levels are pretty good, so I don't want it to be like compression for the sake of getting a sound. Now I want compression just to make sure that it doesn't get out of control on certain notes, and you wonder why, like, why is that so loud, you know? So I put the L2 on, and it just hits every once in a while, like when the vocals are layered. So like, check it out. I'm gonna just solo this here. Now check, this is all the vocals together.
Everything's the same. We both work too hard. The pressure's building up to a brighter day. We don't have no.
See, it just hits on some of the times when they're together. Sometimes it doesn't. It's all like kind of whenever it's necessary. So it's not all the time. Okay. So that just kind of makes it so it don't just get out of control. Now, here's the thing. Now when you do that, with the Puigchild, sometimes the vocal isn't up front enough, especially when it's a pop track. So what I do with that is I start doing my parallel chains, okay? So I set up 2 parallel chains. I always set up a compression chain, which in this case is, in this case right here is the T-Rex 1176 plugin. Now reason why I like this one is because you can make it so that it's not stereo link. You can make it do like multi-mono kind of compression. So the left side compresses and the right side compresses independently. Okay, it's just with this little link button right here. You turn that off, now it's multi-mono. It's left and right EQing how they want to, or compressing how they want to. Now I set the attack at the fastest. I set the release at the fastest, and I do the all buttons in mode, right? And with this is really cool. It really gives it this pop, this real like explosive kind of sound. Check it out.
Everything's the same. We both work too hard. The pressure's building up to a brighter day. We don't laugh no more.
So it's kind of an over compressed sound, but which is what I'm going for with this, okay? Because I'm just gonna blend that in, right? So now that I got that set up, now I set up another chain, and this right here is my dirt track. Now my dirt track, most of the time I've kind of fallen in love with the soft tube saturation knob. It's kind of dope, right? So I just turn this up until I start hearing a crunch, and not too much of a crunch, but just a good crunch.
Everything's the same. We both work too hard. The pressure's building up to a brighter day. We don't.
Right? So that's what that sounds like. So now I just blend those together until I get the sound that I'm looking for. So let's get that going. Levels. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna bring in each part of the parallel chains. So I'll bring in the compression by itself, and then I'll bring in the dirt track, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So check it out.
It's time to get away from everything familiar.
Now check it out. Here's the dirt. Here's the parallel compression track.
It's time to get away from everything familiar. Let's take a flight today.
Right? That's really cool, right? So now I'm gonna bring in the dirt track.
It's time to get away from everything familiar. Let's take a flight today to a place where we can play.
Now these, when you put these together, now you can kind of you can automate the level of these at different times of the track. Sometimes you want more of the compression sound. Sometimes you want less of the compression. Sometimes you want more dirt. Sometimes you want less dirt, and it makes the vocal sit right in the right spot. So I'm gonna play it with the track, and I'll turn my parallel chain on and off, and you'll see how the vocal sits in comparison.
It's time to get away from everything familiar. Let's take a flight today to a place where we can play.
So you get the point there. When the parallel stuff is in, the vocal sits right on top, sits right in front, right in the spot. But then when it's off, it's there, but it's like in the back a little bit. It's not like quite out front, but it's really warm. So that's what my Puigchild is doing, is giving me that warmth. And then I put these parallel chains in, and it gives me that forwardness. So when you mix them together, it just sounds beautiful, and it just fits in the track. Okay. So that right there is the best vocal chain. I mean, it's a combination of a few things that I've learned from like Chris Lord-Alge's information mixed with Andrew Shep's information. Like you kind of find what you like, mix it all together, figure out what works for you. And for me, this works super dope. And yeah, I hope you learned something new. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe below. Leave a comment below. Let me know if this helped you out in any kind of way. And yeah, I guess I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.